Bonjour et bonsoir. This is Avale Storm. Welcome back to my channel. And this is part 2 of Vanity's Secrets. We're talking about her life as Denise and as Vanity and how they were two individual entities and how they both were fighting over control of Denise's soul. And it's an interesting story because a lot of people that want to be famous and go into the industry, they don't realize that there is a price to pay for it. You pay with your soul if you want to be successful and you want to be number one in the business. There's a price to pay. There's a contract that you sign, and the contract is on a very special paper. It's not regular paper that you print from. It's a very special paper that they use, and you actually do sign your soul over, and you do sign in blood. People think that it's fantasy and fiction. They don't believe it, but it's true. These people actually prick their fingers and put a dab of blood on their contracts, and the contracts are put on a pentagram, and they're, I guess, chanted over. They use these incantations to summon the spirit, and it's something that's not widely known. I think there's been a lot of videos now that talk about it, about the music industry in specific, and how there's a secret occult society, and how there's rituals behind the scenes that people don't know unless you've been there, you were invited to something, or you were indoctrinated, as they say, and you got out of it somehow, and then you were able to live to talk about it. Those are only people that really know, and they're in danger because once you speak about it, you're in trouble. They would have to do it in a way where they're anonymous, and the people that they're deceiving or being deceptive towards won't find out. I don't know how they're going to do that, but that's the only way you can do it. Because when you become famous in that occult, and you sign on the dotted line, you become a part of that indoctrination, you are held by your contract. There are blood sacrifices where there's people in your family that you have to sacrifice in order to keep what you have or to get more. They call it blood sacrifices. And there's a lot of examples of that. I mean, I'm going to get into that a little bit further, but talking specifically about Denise and how she became Vanity, it was ritualistic. She literally was indoctrinated. She was given a name by Prince. Prince gave her a name called Vanity. And people, he brushed it off to make it more mainstream so people can accept it. Say, oh no, it was Vanity. It's like when I look at her reflection, I see myself, as what he says. Why he chose that name for her. But it's deeper than that, because of course it was Vanity 6. And the 6 is not what people think it is. People think, oh, he was just talking about the number of breasts on each woman. Each woman has 2 breasts, so it's Vanity 6. He was referencing their breast. No, he was not. That's something that somebody else came up with, and that just became the reasoning behind it, kind of like a joking reason behind it. But no, what the 6 represents is a sign of the beast. It's 3 of them. Each one has a 6. 666. That's Vanity 6 is a sign of the beast. In Revelations, that's what the 6 stands for. And that's why there were 3 women. Each woman represents the number 6. It's an occult reference. And some people got it, some people didn't, but it was an occult reference. It was supposed to be subliminal. It wasn't supposed to be extremely overt or obvious to the average person. It really was supposed to be just kind of subliminal, get you caught up and caught in and reeled in. So that was another thing that people didn't really know about Vanity 6, and that Vanity herself, Denise, who became Vanity, she had to go through a ritualistic ceremony in order to become Vanity. Um, what people don't know is that Prince and several other people that he got together had a ritualistic ceremony for Vanity. They chanted with her. They had different drugs to get her involved with, to get her under the influence and under a spell-like state so she can take on who Vanity is, because Vanity was more or less a very feral, wild, aggressive, sexual woman who was kind of like similar to the Whore of Babylon. It was kind of like that type of a woman. And that's the spirit that Prince wanted her to have. She accepted it. She took on that spirit. She thought she was stronger than the spirit because she felt like, oh, I'll just do this and pretend. I'll just pretend like I'm going to get totally involved in this. And then once I get where I need to go, then I'm going to separate and move on and change my image. That's what Denise thought she was going to be able to do. Unfortunately, that really didn't happen in the way she wanted to do. The spirit that she conjured up with Prince, which was Vanity, which was this lustful, wild spirit, took over Denise. So much so she only wanted people to call her Vanity, because if you called her Denise, she'd get very upset. She would get totally enraged if you called her Denise. She spoke about it many times on different shows, and I said, wow, she really is gone. All you saw was Vanity. Yeah, you see the interviews, it was just Vanity, 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 Vanity. That spirit took over. And when she did leave Prince, she did her solo album, she tried to change her image as far as what she looked like. She changed what she looked like. She became more glamorous. Because when she was with Prince as Vanity, Vanity really wasn't glamorous. Vanity was like a hooker, basically, like a kind of like a dominatrix type girl. Not very glamorous, just very kind of street, very street. And when she left Prince, she glammed it up a bit. She kind of added more of a costume to what Vanity is like. She got her hair done differently, and the makeup was better. Her clothing became more luxurious. She was wearing a lot of fur and diamonds and pearls, and she really changed it. She really kind of flipped her image a little bit, where it was more of a glamorous, sexy look. And then, but still, that entity was still there. That Vanity entity was there. That spirit that they call Vanity was still there. When I was listening to her album, the first solo album, which is Wild Animal, I was reading some of the lyrics on it, and I thought it was kind of interesting how you could see in the lyrics how she was telling you how she changed. I'm going to read a little excerpt from her Flippin' Out song, which was Vamp, short for Vanity, a woman who uses her charms and wiles to seduce. Vampish Vanity, I am Vamp. A woman who practices seductiveness by magic spell. Now, that alone lets me know that this entity has taken over. You know, like this Vanity entity, which is a vamp, which to me, a vamp is a person that uses people and then destroys them. You know, a vampish person will, it's like a predator. They see someone they want because they have money or power, and they go in and they take that money and power from that person. Then they destroy that person after they've used them, or they just leave that person after they get what they want. So she's talking about how she uses her charms and wiles to seduce these men and women to get what she wants. And then she talks about how she uses magic spells, which is witchcraft. And Vanity, basically, in my mind, was either a sorceress and a witch. You know, she had a power of sorcery and witchcraft. She was a witch. And she starts to talk about that. In a lot of her lyrics, you kind of hear it in her lyrics. And She did some back masking on a few of her songs. If you play some of her songs backwards, she's, has back masking messages. And then in this particular song, while flipping out, you start to see how she changed and who changed her. And she talks about it in the song as well. And the lyrics say, "A fool there was, and you paid your coin to a dark-eyed dame from the Tenderloin. You took me in the West Coast town and filled me up in a form-fit gown. Filled my eyes with Bella Ladonna and said, 'Now, lady, forget your honor. For henceforth now you're a scarlet scamp, the grandest red-lipped black soul vamp. So now I lie awake in my tomb, awaiting the next kiss me, my fool.'" So to me, she's talking about how Prince took her to the West Coast, because she's from Canada. She moved to Toronto, and then from Toronto, she lived in Japan. From Japan, she moved to New York. From New York, she moved to California. So she's talking about how Prince brought her to the West Coast, and he helped to change her image. He gave her an image. He changed her image into Vanity, and how after she changed into Vanity, she became the grandest. She became the most sought-after woman. She was the most beautiful woman of her time, of her generation, and how she sold her soul to become this vamp, this vampire type or witch type person. And she even talks about she's lying in her tomb. She's lying in a tomb. So she's talking about the old person has died, the new person is living, which is Vanity. Denise is dead, Vanity is alive, and now she's waiting for the next person to prey upon. That was what she's talking about in that song. And I thought that was very, very interesting, because she's telling you exactly what happened to her in her music. She never talked about it in her interviews, but you would find more about her, like what really happened behind the scenes in her music. So she's talking about her turning into Vanity and using witchcraft. And if you look at some of her videos, you could tell she's using like hand gestures that are very witch-like. She had a lot of tendency to do that. I remember seeing her some of these videos, and she's literally doing the signs of witchcraft, the finger movements and the devil horns in her videos. But it's very clever. The way she does it is very clever. It's not very obvious. You have to kind of look for it. Not like they do now. Now they just put it out there. But back in her generation, it was more hidden. The symbology was hidden, and you'd have to look for it. You have to understand what she's talking about in the lyrics. Just like I just read to you, you could tell that she got into the witchcraft. And they called the witch's name was Vanity. And that witch, or devilish spirit, was taking over Denise, and took over Denise and tried to kill Denise, actually. So after she got her solo career off the ground, and she became very successful because she was in The Last Dragon, and there's a lot of symbology of her in The Last Dragon on her outfit, the blue outfit that she wore when she comes out of the ceiling. She's got numbers on the left side of her dress. At the very top near the collarbone, there's numbers going all the way down. And I used to think, wow, those look like numbers, but I never really knew what they meant. But if you look closely to that dress, you see those numbers. And a lot of it has to do with witchcraft. They use a lot of numbers in witchcraft. And each number has a vibration. And there's this thing called the magic of numbers. So it was kind of like a powerful energy that she was omitting. Because I remember when she gave that performance, when she came out the ceiling, it was like this very powerful, very strong movements. Like it was a very occult thing. Because even when she was in Vanity 6, she used to wear the cape. And she used to wear the tuxedo jacket with the tails and the long boots and stuff. And the way she was doing her movements in Vanity 6 was very much like a witch, ritualistical witch seance. It was like it was very occult ritual. Like she was casting a spell, or she was, doing some kind of divination. And you could see it in her movements in Vanity 6 as well. And she carried it along throughout her career, and it didn't really change until much later. But I was looking at that video of her coming out the ceiling, and I was just like, wow, she's using the devil horns. She does the devil horns a few times. She even does like this witch, like casting a spell on everybody in the room. She spins around, and she's doing like the sign of Satan, and she's trying to cast a spell on everybody in the room. It's something that they do in witch rituals. And people didn't know that. People just thought, oh, she's just kind of weird. She has these weird dance moves, but it was very much witch-like. It was definitely witchcraft that she was actually doing. And what it did is that it was like she was selling her soul, and after she sold her soul to Satan, she had to put those images in her video and her lyrics. It was like a contract. If you want to be famous and you want to get to the top, and you want to be number one, you have to do all these other things. You have to dress a certain way, talk a certain way, put these images in your videos, put these lyrics in your songs, etc., and do backmasking, which is putting messages on your songs that are in reverse. If you play the song in reverse, you hear them chanting to Satan. So that's what she was doing. And during her time as Vanity, she started to date a lot of different men and women. And we talked about some of the men already, which was Adamant, Nikki Sixx, Prince, Billy Idol. She also dated women. And one of the women that I remember she dated was a woman that was she did a TV movie called Mesmer's Bible. And it was Friday the 13th TV series. And the redhead lady that was in Friday the 13th, the actress name was Louise Roby. She played Mickey Foster on the TV series. She was a redhead one. She and Vanity had a intimate relationship, and people didn't know that. It was well known in the industry that they were dating. They became a pair, and it's just one of those things that kind of just happened. I think that Vanity was trying to find what made her happy, and she had been in several really bad relationships with men, and at that point she wanted to see, well, maybe I can try women and see if that'll be a better fit for me. She was very open to it. And again, remember when I said that Prince loved women that were bisexual and did menage a trois, which would be him and two other women? He liked that. I think that Vanity had some intimate relationships with Prince and other women at the same time, because Vanity was still seeing Prince well after they initially broke up, because she was on Regis and Kathy Lee's show in the 90s. It's a YouTube video about it, and she talks about how she created a piece of art for Prince, and that she'd been working on it for 2 years, and the first time she showed it to him, he didn't like it, but then she redid it, and then he loved it. And so therefore she had been seeing him for a while, way after she left Vanity 6 and moved on. They were still friends. They still had a relationship, because Vanity knew that at that point Prince only wanted to have sex with her and hang out with her. He didn't want a committed relationship at the time. He was not ready for that. He was not mature enough to settle down at that time. He just wanted to play around. So she ended up going with Louise Roby and becoming intimate with her. I think her relationship with her, as far as it being intimate, lasted a little over a year. And then she would go back and forth between Prince and Louis Roby. So that was kind of one of their little triangles as well. People didn't know that. And also she had a relationship with a makeup artist. She had a female makeup artist that she also had an intimate relationship with as well. She had a few girlfriends. They weren't famous. A lot of the girls that she dated, a lot of them weren't necessarily famous. Some of them were models. She had a model friend of hers that they dated for a little while, who did a lot of campaigns and stuff like that, but wasn't a huge model. But if I can, when I find that information, I'm going to definitely post it. But it was a model that she used to date, a female model that Vanity dated for a little while, and she made her rounds. She really did have a lot of female partners, and people. She never really talked about it in depth, but she did mention it. And I think she said it on the Joan Rivers show. Joan Rivers had interviewed her, and she talked about it on that show. So yeah, so she had her intimate relationships with women, and she said it didn't work out. I think part of it was because being bisexual, she wasn't 100% committed to the woman. That if they were to get involved, that it would just be sexual intimacy. There would be no relationship beyond that. It was kind of like she did to them what Prince did to her. It was like, all we can do is be friends with benefits, and that's it. Not a relationship. We're not going to get married. We're not going to live together. So that's kind of how she was. And I think a lot of that vanity spirit was that. Vanity was just about using people, getting what she wanted, and moving on. She didn't really stay with one person for very long. And it was kind of like Prince. Prince did the same exact thing. He had 2 marriages. He dated hundreds of women and never stayed with them for more than a moment. I think the longest relationship might have been with Maite and Manuela. Those were his long-term relationships. But then he divorced both of them. He left both of them and moved on. And I think that's kind of how Vanity was. Vanity kind of had that same personality. She didn't stick with somebody very long. Nikki Sixx, that didn't last very long. They were supposed to get married. She was engaged to him. And they didn't get married. Well, here's a clip about Vanity talking about she used to date women, and also talking about being possessed by demons and having demons in her house, because she was doing seances and she was doing tarot card readings and Ouija boards and all those things in her house. So that's what was coming up. So listen to this clip.
Were you wild, do you think? Wild? Yes, I was extremely wild. Give me an instance. I played. Well, I used to going out and flirting and teasing, and just the way I showed myself, the way I performed. Yeah, demons did possess me.
What about you? Just
You're not walking with God, demons will possess you.
You were suspended over a bed. Somebody tell me.
A woman caught me one time suspended about 3 feet in my bed. But then, I was doing psychic things. For anybody that's listening to psychics, for anybody that's doing psychic work, okay? Yeah. It's all of the devil. When you come to God...
She admits that she was using witchcraft, and she was using divination. She was doing seances at her house. She would have people come to her house, and they would speak to the dead, where they would conjure up different spirits. And she was using tarot cards. She was using runes. She was using Ouija boards. And she also used mirrors to talk to spirits, because it was rumored that she had this huge, chest of drawers. And on top of it, there was this big 3-foot, 4-foot mirror that was enclosed in a cabinet. And she would open it up and do these rituals and speak to the spirits through her mirrors. And she did that for years. So she was heavily into the occult, and she was heavily into witchcraft and Satanism. In Hollywood, there's a lot of those groups around there. There's a lot of people involved, from the very top of the echelons of that society to the very bottom. There's people from every walk of life. that are part of that whole cult. And that's what she was involved with for years. And you could see at the, near the end of her career that she had totally become Vanity. There was no more Denise. Denise had vanished. And it was a very difficult time for her. I think she was really, very scared for her life. I think that she tried to get out of it a few times, and it didn't work. And that's when she started doing more drugs. She did more drugs heavily to try to forget, to try to, medicate herself and try to forget the pain and the things that were going on around her. And she was really trying to escape. That's what the drugs were. It was an escape for her. And the reason why she chose cocaine is because it gave her a lot of energy, and it gave her like this euphoric feeling at the same time. So that's what she wanted. She wanted a ton of energy, and she wanted to feel high all the time. And that's what it did for her. So that's why and here's the thing about her life back in Canada. Both of her parents were drug addicts. So of course she's going to probably inherit that same gene, because you can inherit that. And to me, her mom was a drunk and her father was a drug user too. So she had a predisposition to drug usage, and that's why she became an addict. And I think that's probably one of the reasons Prince didn't want to date her exclusively, because she was heavily on drugs. By the time Purple Rain started to be developed, she had gotten into cocaine heavily around that time. And he tried to get her to stop, and she wouldn't. She was like, oh no, I'm going to do what I want to do. Because it was her life, and she felt like, it's her life. She's going to do what she wants. And she felt like she was stronger than the drug, because they all do. Everybody thinks that they're stronger than the drug. Oh yeah, I can stop it anytime I want. That kind of thing. So she started to do more and more. It started off very slowly, because when she started to do cocaine, it was first person she did cocaine with, from what I understand, was Morris Day. He was the one that introduced her to it and showed her how to smoke it, and that's when they called it freebasing, and then it became crack or whatever. So he showed her how to do that and how to make it. Actually, he showed her how to make it. So that's what she was doing, smoking it. And first it was just she was doing it socially, like at parties or certain events that she would go to. She'd do it, and then it became daily. It became every day. She couldn't wake up without smoking crack. So she was a hardcore drug addict at that point in the mid 90s. And it just kind of kept her locked into that witchcraft. Like she didn't want to get, it was like she was an addict and she was stuck in the occult. So she had like two things going for her that were really holding her back: the drugs and then the witchcraft. So this is part 2, and we're going to get into part 3 next Monday. So stay tuned. There's going to be names that I'm going to name, more people that she was involved with, and more behind the scenes information that was not in her book, Blame It on Vanity. So stay tuned, and I'll talk to you later. Ciao.